Lamya. A very warm welcome to this webinar titled Inspiring Women Leading the Ummah, organized by StriveUK. StriveUK has at its core the mission of representing Islam in its beauty, with a firm understanding that this beauty of Islam can only be comprehended in its totality. The beauty of Islam we strive to represent is manifested in our commitment to uphold the values of truth, justice, equality, dignity, and freedom in the society we live in. As Muslims, we believe that the emancipatory and liberatory aspects of Islam are instrumental in realizing these values and serving humanity. We are committed to empowering community members, espouse social justice programs, and collaborate with like-minded groups to promote a more egalitarian society. We are prepared to unlearn, challenge norms, and call out on bias unapologetically. We aim to empower our fellow citizens to lead full lives by encouraging social, political, and religious engagement. StriveUK was founded in 2017, and we are a small network of diverse British Muslims. In this brief space, we manage to host regular seminars and workshops for adults and children on themes and topics of contemporary relevance to create social awareness. We tap into our members' generosity and have partnered relief works across the world. Our flagship Women's Conference was organized by utilizing the diverse skill set of our members and successfully brought together some of the country's most inspirational women activists to help the fight against institutional misogyny and Islamophobia. رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. Meaning of which is, our Lord, grant unto us spouses and offspring who will be the comfort of our eyes, and give us the grace to lead the righteous. Now, this is a dua that we all pray daily, maybe after each salah, and we all know that this is a dua mentioned in Holy Quran. In essence, we are seeking Allah to give all of our children, the future generations, the grace or the ability to lead the righteous without any gender discrimination. So we are praying for our girls as much as we are for our boys. When we explore the history of Islam and its teachings, we can see that women took part in various socio-political activities. We can see that they even participated in wars. But somewhere down the line, things changed, perhaps due to cultural influences, perhaps ignorance. But I'm sure you will agree that we need engagements and webinars such as these, as we need to empower ourselves by speaking to Muslim women leaders of today who are rightfully claiming their space as leaders. We need to unlearn the bias that has crept in with a thorough knowledge of our religion and remind ourselves and our younger generations that the responsibility to lead is not gender specific. Now, without further ado, I would like to call upon our first speaker, Raghad Altikriti. Raghad is the president of Muslim Association of Britain and the first Muslim woman in the UK to lead a major Islamic movement. She works closely with the European Forum of Muslim Women. She specializes in topics concerning Muslim women and youth in the West. She contributes regularly with politicians and decision makers to the discussion of Islamophobia in the West and its effect on the Muslim community. So I invite Raghad Altikriti to deliver her talk.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear sisters, thank you, Lamya, for this introduction. And it gives me great pleasure to be here today amongst my sisters. Alhamdulillah, I'm getting used to the amazing events that StriveUK organizes. And I loved the way that you stated your commitments to empowering and mashallah, beautiful, beautiful ideas and beautiful commitments. And I think even the verses that were, subhanallah, recited carry amazing, subhanallah, ideas that we should live by. So jazakumullah khair for inviting me and allowing me to share with two other amazing sisters this platform, and most importantly to share with the hundreds or the hundred, I think we arrived at 100 of the listeners, the sisters listeners. And I know the title says that Muslim sisters leading the nation, and it's a bit too big, and it might cause some kind of controversy, as in, do you truly lead the ummah? But I think after thinking about it, it is very important for each one of us to feel that we are playing a role in leading this nation. We are filling a gap in pushing this nation forward. So don't shy away when you say, my life, my work is dedicated to leading this ummah. And you're going to play your part. And it doesn't mean it's a sole part, but it's a collective effort on behalf of everyone to be able to push this a little bit to the front. So inshallah, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Almighty, to bless this gathering and grant us all sincerity, success in our aims and objectives, and grant all those who are attending knowledge, wisdom and guidance, and their families and their loved ones. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless our hearts with tranquility and content. I was asked to speak about my experience as a Muslim woman in a leading position, being the president of the Muslim Association of Britain. And of course, as some of you may know, that membership in MAB, or the Muslim Association of Britain, is open to both men and women. So the organization I lead contains both brothers and sisters. And I think when I was elected, people were doubting. It was a new thing in our organization, at least, for a woman, for a sister to be in the leading job. And of course, it is something to be celebrated, but it's a great responsibility that we should learn how to deal with. And of course, I'm not claiming that this is an easy ride. I think responsibility or leadership comes with many challenges before you become in a position of leadership and during you are in that position. So what I want to do is to take you on my journey. And I would like to take you back to a time when I was maybe a teenager, and that's many years ago, when I was frustrated by the limitations people placed in my way, using, of course, some of the excuses that Lamya just mentioned, how things are, and the areas that women should stop there, and many excuses, communities, shamefulness, and all those things that at that stage angered me and frustrated me. But I'll tell you what truly empowered me. The true essence of empowerment came when I got to read more about the seerah. When I came to be empowered by the stories of the companion woman around the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that opened my eyes. The examples of two women I'm going to mention in particular, and I think many of you are aware of their stories, Nusayba bint Ka'b and Khawla bint al-Azwar, two amazing, phenomenal women that we had in our history and played untraditional roles. Those two women were known as warriors for their skills in battlefield, something untraditional. Most of the women at that time were in the back lines, and that is not to belittle their roles, the women in the back, because that was essential for the success of the front lines. So when I'm mentioning Nusayba and Khawla, I don't mean to take away anything from the role of the women who are attending the injured, who were helping and supporting, providing the meals, not at all. But those two women were playing untraditional roles that were mentioned even on the tongue of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he mentioned that in the battlefield, when he was fighting, he would look to his left, look to his right, and find Nusayba bint Ka'b defending him fiercely. What amazed me and what made me, happy is that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam he acknowledged that role, and he did not order her to go back to the back line, to where all the women were. He realized her skills and he allowed her to be. The other woman I mentioned is Khawla bint al-Azwar, and Khawla bint al-Azwar is also known as a warrior. She used to be, let's say, if you know the story of Mulan, the Disney, she was the Mulan, the historical Mulan, but with different consequences towards the end. She would cover her face. She would cover her face and go into the battlefield. People would liken her her skills in fighting the enemy as Khalid bin al-Walid. And Khalid bin al-Walid, all of us know, he's a leader. He was the leader of the army. So he was highly skilled in battlefields. And they would liken Khawla bint al-Azwar's skill to him because she was covering her face. So everyone would think that is Akid, that is definitely Khalid bin al-Walid. Even Khalid bin al-Walid himself was impressed by her skills. And he went to say, show me your face, who are you? And then he realized she's a woman. But she didn't have the ending of Mulan in being punished because she was a woman. She was allowed to continue in that role. And that freed my soul. It empowered my passion and it energized my dream. To know that my fuel stems from within my faith, not outside it. Because unfortunately, we lose the hearts of women who can push beyond the known boundaries, and they've got the ability, and we limit them. They either choose to be faithful and capped with the limitations of what they thought faith, but it's culture or man-made. And it took that, let's say, glass ceiling or definite ceiling away from me. The restrictions blocking, as I said, were unleashed my abilities. And I felt that from the stories I've heard, my faith equips me with the ability to go beyond what is known or what is accepted, as long as I am within the boundaries of my faith and equipped with taqwa, consciousness of Allah in the steps I take. So this success that we're celebrating today is dedicated to all women and men who invested in my growth or in the growth of all speakers and everyone in this meeting today, and who helped in the process of development while pursuing their own dreams and passions. Many people wouldn't even realize that they empowered you while they were going on about their jobs. And those are the best of people who give you even when they are busy. The examples that instilled in me a drive to succeed without fear or limitation, no limits, as long as you're within the boundaries of your faith. One should never feel inferior because of one's gender. And that is a problem I faced when women would say, but you're a woman, you're a girl. And I learned you should never feel inferior. Different roles, maybe, completing each other's roles, but not inferior. I was never dreaming of leadership, by the way, just in case you understand the story as if my dream was never did it occur to me that I wanted to become a leader or be in a position of power. But I was dreaming of showing Muslim women and youth that their faith empowers them rather than restrict them. That you should not hold yourself back to adhere to your faith when it comes to progress and impact. That Allah will grant you success if you activate your faith in all aspects of your life. And today, I think I would like to use this platform to inform everyone, men and women, that we can succeed, especially us as Muslim women. We can succeed and we can be in positions of leadership while we are activating our faith and going along the lines of our faith and the boundaries of our faith. And also to shed light on the difficulties that women do experience and provide maybe some guidelines to succeed in whatever they do, because everyone is different. I think it's very important to use this platform to celebrate the various achievements and different types of successes, and not to belittle any achievement you make. We're not pointing here to a handful of successful women and claiming that their successes are important and the rest who are achieving successes on different levels are not. We want a mother to feel happy with her achievements in raising her children. In each stage, potty training, teaching them the etiquettes of Islam, teaching them their first surah, all of that has to carry some weight and some kind of acknowledgement and celebration. We do not want any woman to belittle her achievements when compared to others. And that unfortunately happens. And I've noticed it. Someone says, well, this woman speaks and she knows how to address. I'm not doing anything. Never belittle what you're good at, even if it's something small. The people at the front will never be the people at the front if there wasn't a backbone and a back office pushing them forward and helping them each step of the way. So I think it's very important to focus and empower one another. Having women role models, of course, mentors and friends around you is so important. Why? So we inspire each other and build upon each other's strengths. Success is never about progressing alone, but it is about creating a positive impact and energy on those around you. Mobilizing, for example, hidden talents. How many hidden talents do we have? Through your networks and relationship, that is a very important aspect. So this is all about motivating the people around you, both men and women. And I think it's extremely important to understand one's strengths and weaknesses and understand the strengths and weaknesses of those around you. Because once you do that, you learn how to be a contributor on whatever level they are, both yourself and those around you. You make them feel that they are contributing to this nation's success. Also, I think it's very important to remember to be able to in order to be able to maintain the success is for you to be in a positive mood, to be happy, excited about the work you're doing. And I think people will look at me and think, as mothers, as women, we have a million things to juggle. How are we going to do that? But I think it's very important, because if you're miserable, this is going to spill into the rest, all areas of your life, and you don't want to do that. I think in the position of leadership, there's things to remember. And because I don't have a lot of time, I'm going to say quick points that I think it's useful for us to remember. First thing, in whatever you're doing, connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Strengthen your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Turn to Him at all times. Ask for Him to empower you as a leader, as a mother, as a teacher, as a doctor, whatever area you're involved in. Realize that you do your best. You are going to perform your best, and Allah, inshallah, will bless your work with success. Leadership is about creating solutions for any significant issues in the field that you are interested in the field that you are dealing with at the moment. And it's very important to feel supported in your teams. Surround yourself with the right mentors who will help you in your journey. And don't take things personally. Sometimes you will hear things that will annoy you and make you feel inferior or not important. Don't worry. Just keep focused. Keep focused. Remember those objectives you hold. Don't be afraid to ask or voice an opinion. Us women, unfortunately, we're very reluctant. We have amazing ideas, but we think someone else will say our ideas. I don't want to sound like a person who's asking for too much. I say, challenge yourself and push yourself and voice an opinion and ask a question. Feel authentic, sincere, and genuine in your role. You don't have to change. Just try to bring the best in you in the responsibility you hold. And I think it's always very important for us women to remember that we don't represent ourselves, but we represent the voices of others as well. So it's very important to be responsible and to be empowering. And also, there's many barriers that we may find. And I think women, unfortunately, don't look at career planning. And when I say career, it's not about job or business. It's about your career in whatever field you are, even as a mother. Your career, when your children become 5, then teens, then graduate to university, then beyond when they get married and you're left alone. What is the planning? We don't do that. And I think it's very important to explore our future needs and the opportunities we want to utilize along the way. I think it's very important for us women, for example, in my leadership role, for a succession plan. Who are the women who are going to take on when I leave? I'm just driving this vehicle forward. I'm not remaining here forever. I want to move forward and then leave it for others. We need adequate training, support, and coaching. And I think that's very important to realize in organizations such as Strive as well. And I think they provide that, mashallah, on a very good level. I think it's very important as well to put strategies in place to identify future women leaders and also create training programs. Create those training programs to help succeed once they get to the top, because what we do, we leave them. Actually, they need it when they're at the top. We're in the leading positions. Also, something very important for women, especially, and please let me know if I'm coming to the end of my time because I can talk forever. It's managing disappointments and stress. We get disappointed and we feel like failures. And I tell you that your success is born by the mistakes you make. You have to understand this. You have to teach it to your children. The failures that they go through is what's going to make them grow and succeed. So we have to change that kind of mentality. Don't be stressed. Things happen and we have to let go. We have to focus on power sharing. SubhanAllah, we've got the strength of win-win solutions. And that is why women leaders, sometimes they've got this emotional intelligence, and I'm not taking away anything from my brothers, but we have unique characteristics that we could bring in to the field of leadership. We promote diversity, we support each other. So we make people, and we should if we don't, we make them feel important, included and energized. And these characteristics can transform the people around us. So I think it's very important as well to realize that we're all very different. And our priorities are so different from one person to the other, even among sisters. And I think that finding the right balance in which is your priority depends on your individual wants, needs, goals, and your life circumstances. I cannot say what is good for me would be good for another sister. We have to consider all these, your wants, needs, goals. Your ambitions might be different than mine, and your circumstances might be totally different. So we shouldn't be overridden with guilt, feeling, well, she did it, maybe her circumstances were different. But we should rather find peace in what we do. And I think that's very important. And I want to highlight this word, peace. Find peace, even if it's on a small scale. A sister who's holding 5 children and teaching them something, that's success. And she should celebrate it and maybe have another ambition to move forward with them. So I think we have to communicate, ask questions, set achievable goals. Sometimes we're very impossible, unrealistic goals, and schedule our routines, and always look after yourself. Avoid crazy deadlines and plan time for recovery. We need gaps. Remember Ghar Hira, we need Ghar Hira. We need to retreat to our caves and just reflect and think. And I think all of these things will further empower our leadership and our success if we tend to ourselves before we tend to others, of course, and that is so we can present the best that we can. I think because I'm worried about the time, and I could see that I'm approaching to the end. I think you have to find a balance. Some people would ask me, so how did you do it? I'm now a mother of 2 grown-up girls and a teen. And it's different when I had 3 children, totally different. My priorities are different. So each step or each stage, you have to sit with yourself and you have to begin thinking, how do I plan for this period? And what do I do after this period? And I think it's very important to honor and cherish your faith and yourself from within the boundaries of your faith, and accept that there is no perfect balance. You're never going to be, perfect in what you do. And remember as well, very important for us, family is top priority, because the voice of feminisms sometimes come into international days and blow up the family unit and makes it about you. Your family is a top priority. This is your essential project. And even attending to parents, for those of us who aren't married, or attending to your siblings, you have a responsibility and you've got to succeed in that before you succeed in everything else. Be grateful for whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you, for the friends you have, and let go of guilt. Stop feeling guilty. Start thinking, how can I be better? And there is something I will maybe leave you with, 2 things I'm going to leave you with. Mind management follows what I've heard or read about is a ripple process. Ripple the word and break it down to the letters. So R, ripples, R, reflect, I, identify, P, prepare, the other P is plan, and then L, leverage, E, evaluate, S will grant us success, inshallah. So think about it, read more. There's a lot of people who wrote about the ripples process. We can change our old mindsets into new expectations. And by rediscovering what's really important, I think one last examples that I want to leave you with from our modern day, Halima Yaqub, the president of Singapore, a petite Muslim woman with her hijab, who was elected in 2017, the same year that I think StriveUK, if I didn't mishear that, 2017. She was elected to be the president of this country, a multi-ethnic, multi-religious, it's not an Islamic country, it's a multi-ethnic, multi-religious country, and maybe Christianity is the first religion in that country. And with her hijab, she proved to the world that she can lead a country. And the hijab is not a barrier. And it doesn't take away from the achievements that she has made. She has been able to include everyone in the benefit she brought to her country, in the success she has made. I think if there's anyone, because we might think it was different back then, well, things are different when you're in a Muslim country, look at this woman and read about her and see how she's celebrated. This, I think, is an enough example for all of us to be empowered, to feel passionate about what we do, and not to belittle any role that you're doing as a woman. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Raghad, for that inspirational and very amazing talk. So, yeah, as you said, we women are playing a role in leading the nation. Although we are not forefront leaders, but we still play an important role. So let's go to the next speaker, Dr. Sadiya Ahmed. Dr. Sadiya is a doctor by profession, a medical researcher in the field of biochemistry and molecular biology, and has also worked in academia. She is also working with British Islamic Medical Association for educating the community regarding COVID pandemic. She is currently working as head of UKIM sister section. UKIM is one of the oldest nationwide Islamic organization in the UK, founded in October 1962. I request Dr. Sadiya to deliver her talk.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Lamya, and I'm really grateful to StriveUK sisters to invite me and give me opportunity to speak to other sisters as well as brothers on this occasion of International Women's Day, and collectively go over our stories, our achievement, and of course our challenges as well. I cannot agree more with Lamya, yourself, and Raghad that as women in some leading role, we have to be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gave us this opportunity. And number two, we should be thankful to all the men and women around us who enabled us in our journey to become able to be in a leading role, as well as we should be inspiring others to become leaders rather than followers. And that would be something which I will be talking about, my own inspiration, as well as myself in this current role of President of UKIM Sisters, that what is our vision. And especially I was asked to reflect on how we plan to lead the Muslim women in British society, and what are our aims and objectives for future. So I start with quoting a verse from Surah Ahzab. Our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is basically what we learn from this verse is the same thing we have been talking about when it comes to International Women's Day theme for 2021, and that is equality. But the concept of equality when it comes from our Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is beautiful, very empowering, and also it is very motivating. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us that equality, which is as a human being, it is there that every man and woman can have this character profile which can make him or her successful, not just in this world, as well as in the hereafter, which is the true essence of success. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that for men and women who are devoted to Allah, the believing men and women, the obedient men and women, the faithful men and women, steadfast men and women, humble men and women, charitable men and women, fasting men and women, may Allah make us amongst those chaste men and women and who remember God often. Allah has prepared for forgiveness and a rich reward. So leading on from this ayah, we have not just this as a theoretical concept, as Raghad was also mentioning about the beautiful examples of remarkable examples of the Sahabiyat. We have our mothers, the mothers of the believer, as the icons for this role, this leading role they have led. And then, of course, other companions of the Prophet ﷺ. And then afterwards, in the golden age of Islam and in the current life has current situation as well, especially in this COVID pandemic. We hear so many stories. Recently, you all have heard about how Zara Muhammad has become, the Secretary General of MCB, and her career is also marked by 2.5 years of excellent work, and especially during pandemic. So the examples are there, but I agree with the theme which sisters were talking about earlier, that we had a very good start, but down the way somewhere things changed, and we do not see that leading role of Muslim women today in society, especially when we're talking about UK society. There are Muslim women who are serving in various fields and institutions, but when it comes to inspirational roles and stories or representing the balance, the holistic approach, there are some things which need to be clarified and focused, why it is happening and what should be done. So I believe this is my own inspiration as well as my belief. And I think it is because it is a divine concept. We all agree, we couldn't agree more, that it is more to do with equity rather than equality. Because equity focuses on how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us as women. We have to focus that we have our own set of positive, I would say, positive elements, and we can't say there are negative elements, but there are certain assets that women have more than men, and then the same applies to the other gender. So equity addresses the system of natural justice, allowing a fair judgment, a society where justice and equity prevail. In contrast to the Western feminism concept, where equality means that men have been taken as a gold standard, and the women have to compete for that, to achieve that goodness. They have to always compete with that gold standard. And somewhere down the line, it is really not possible. So it gives frustration. And when you visit the International Women's Day 2021 page, they have highlighted that we want equality because women still to date, which is a true fact, that they are not given equal opportunities. They are not given equal pays, although they are struggling. And from my medical background, I couldn't agree more with this, that we have to go through the same intense training programs. But when the women are going through pregnancies, lactation, then keeping up all night, taking care of a sick child, and the mental and emotional ups and downs they have to go through, of course, it is not, accommodated in those training programs, isn't it? So it is something which we should be really reflecting upon when it comes to understanding and celebrating that true leadership roles of women. And that also brings us to the division of rights and responsibilities, how they have been created over time. Of course, to start with, if we look at the example of Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, she was a women entrepreneur, a successful businesswoman, then a very able and intelligent woman. And then when she was married, she was an excellent wife. When she became mother, she was an excellent mother. And when she had to go through the challenges and the tough times, with Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she was, exemplary there also. So what happened when the whole concept of rights and responsibilities got mixed up due to educational system or due to the various concepts and ideologies? Then we see the problem arose, and of course it has affected the roles of women representing various spheres of life. So skill set, abilities, the opportunities, the circumstances, they all affect us, but they will be really up to the potential. They will bringing out the potential of women in leading role when we are keeping in mind the divine distribution. And as Raghad was also mentioning this, it is something which is which needs addressing. And mostly especially in the society we are living in, we see there is already so much misconception about Islam. And if we take the percentage, the most misconceptions are then down to focusing onto the Muslim women. So the root of many misconceptions, when they start with Muslim women, it is us, which inspires me also a lot. This is my motivation, especially when I went through Surah Nisa many years back, and I really had a good, thorough understanding of Surah Nisa, the chapter about women. And then I thought there are so many misconceptions, let alone in non-Muslim world, it is within the Muslim world. And Muslim women also do not know what is the concept behind various rules and regulation when it comes to the both genders. So it is very important us as Muslim women, and as Raghad was also saying, every woman should know that she is leading someone, or she is in a leading role, whatever role she is and whatever opportunity she has been given, because it's mentioned in Quran also that everyone would be question about the responsibility, the role they have been given. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not test us beyond our capabilities, isn't it? So it is very important that the misconceptions are clarified by the Muslim women themselves about them. And the narrative that we face in Western society, the narrative is because if we see some Muslim women who are progressing and they are leading in some very fancy institutions or in some very good top jobs in executive positions, so immediate narrative is built up is that it is because they are not very much following the religion of Islam, and that's why they are not suppressed, and that's why they are in leading position and they are liberated, emancipated, because they are not following Islam. So we have to reverse this narrative. We have to direct the story of our future right, that in spite of following the principle, the golden principles of Islam, we can still succeed. And because of our Islamic feminism, the Islamic rights and the privileges we are given, if we are following them rightly in the right context, it will lead us to prosper in our roles, whatever role we are. So what does the future hold for us? We are living in a time when there is a huge mental and spiritual crisis. People's basic needs are met with, so they have more time to contemplate or at least reflect inside that what is the purpose of their life. And because of the very secular type of mindset, which is coming from all sides, there is a gap in the heart to search for the truth. There is a mental and spiritual crisis. And we have to, as Muslim women, we have to find that opportunity, how to fulfill that mental and spiritual crisis, how to come up with the strategy. And of course, we see in a rise in involvement of Muslim men and women, both in our public spheres. We see so much participation there. But having said that, there is a gap in those roles as well. We see maybe our daughters have overcome the institutional sexism in getting admissions into Cambridge, Oxford, or some renowned universities, but then maybe they are not getting up for their fajr, because they're too much consumed into the, just the worldly side of those achievements. So that needs to be fulfilled, that we have to have a holistic approach. So the future for us Muslim women, alongside our Muslim brother, is that we should aim to make this world a better place. Otherwise, we would be replaced. As Allah has said that clearly in Quran, that if we do not sense our responsibility of enjoining good and forbidding evil, we are not involved in any kind of servitude towards community, society we are living in, then we will be replaced. So there is a need as well as the urgency of that need. And it has been really very important that our work should be holistic and this 3-step process. And that is something which is individually my inspiration, as well as when I am working with UK sisters. All the sisters which are involved with me, they are our workforce at UK sisters. They are also working with the same clear vision, which is based on a clear mindset, a vision, and then a strategy. And of course, we are working individually on our own needs as well, which should be holistic, working on our emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, spiritual uplifting, physical needs, as well as intellectual needs, and then bringing about a systemic change, which will be gradual, but it should be deep-rooted. And when we are making our projects, our trainings, we are approaching to young British Muslims, professional people, professional sisters. So we want to have this shared vision that our professional goals should be important, but then we have our religious goals as well. And this holistic approach, I think, will be the key feature which will determine our motivation when we reflect on it, that what are our responsibilities and then how we should be achieving it. And I think our vision, I just want to share what is our vision at UKM Sister, and it is very much in line with the International Women's Day objectives, as well as the divine objectives that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, that we should be working on our personal growth, we should have an ambition with vision, and we should be working with systemic change, for a systemic change, for reforming the society around us, so that we can make this world a better place. And of course, it should not be just wordings, it should be reflected in our everyday working methodology. So when we were going through pandemic, what happened was it was a unique opportunity. In fact, when I took this responsibility as UKM Sisters President, the very same week, the lockdown started. So it was a challenge for myself as also, because UKM work is mostly established in masajid, in mosques, as well as various premises where we meet up regularly every week, and then we carry out our various plans and projects. But to take up this challenge was the first thing that, alhamdulillah, I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I have a wonderful team across UKIM, across UK, various more than 35 locations in UK, and we all accepted the challenge. And I praise the sisters there that they were immediately, they switched on to the next mode, which was suitable for the COVID timings, COVID scenario. And we sensed the community need. We kept the morale boosting of our workers as well as the community around us. And with a growth mindset and an excellent communication, we were able to achieve a smooth running during COVID. And we had our projects according to planned according to the limitations and challenges we were facing. And there was excellent communication which helped us to achieve the results we had. So all this which is shown in this collage picture, it's not just wordings. Actually, we were able to achieve these projects. We were, at the same time, we were aware of the needs for the mentoring, we were the needs for the mental and emotional well-being workshops, character developments, the development of children, so that the mindset can be in place from a very young age. And then, of course, the youth empowerment, community outreach, food hubs, homeless people, helping the people who are facing bereavement, as well as the challenges of illnesses and people being locked inside the houses and affected by the lack of social gatherings. So all those needs were actually sensed. And I am really grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have a wonderful supporting system from our brother side. I want to acknowledge that without their help and facilitation, it wasn't possible. And having said that, it's not enough. We have to have, as I said earlier, we have to develop that sense of responsibility in the right direction, because leadership with a sense of direction is very important, and a holistic approach. It is our vision at UKIM, and we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He enables us to achieve more. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khair, Dr. Sadiya, for that interesting and thought-provoking talk. As you said, it is more about equity than equality, which address the natural justice. And you also highlighted about having vision, mindset, and strategies. Yeah, no, that was, thank you again for that interesting talk. Next, let's move on to our next speaker. Our final speaker for the day is Arzu Merali. Arzu Merali is a Cambridge alumni, writer, and the co-founder of the Islamic Human Rights Commission, and co-authored its recent study, Environment of Hate, the New Normal for Muslims in the UK. IHRC has consultative status with the United Nations and has been vital in leading advocacy campaigns, submitting reports to governments and international organizations, monitoring media, and cataloging war crimes. Since its inception in 1997, under the leadership of Mrs. Merali, the IHRC has become one of the leading human rights advocacy organizations in the UK. Now, I welcome Arzu Merali to deliver her talk.
I'm a little bit nervous. My sisters who have spoken before me have prepared so well. They've covered so many issues that I didn't even think about. And I'm feeling like what I'm going to be saying is not going to compare, but bear with me because I would like to make a few points. I want to sort of try and look forward. And of course, I'm going to have to go backwards a little bit to explain my own situation so you know where I'm coming from, because at the end of the day, it's my view. And I wouldn't want to impose my view on anyone. A little bit about me. So I was just listening to the sisters quoting ayahs of Quran, and I sat here and I thought, oh, I haven't prepared anything like this, etc., etc. And my mind wandered. I've got a terrible sort of habit of getting distracted once I hear something and then going down a rabbit hole. And I remembered at the age of about 14, my mum buying me a book. Sorry, I'm just looking for my stopwatch here. Now I grew up I was born and grew up in a very sort of white working class part of North London. And for a long time, probably till my mid-teens, was very isolated from other Muslims, even from other minoritized communities. And even my mum's generation of Muslim sisters, they were kind of quite educated, integrated. You wouldn't see a lot of what we say is hijab, as in, things covering your head. But in my case, not covering my head was the least of my problems. I had very little other clothing on as well, I'm sorry to say. And I looked at the book, and the name of the book was called Fatima is Fatima, and it's by a philosopher called Dr. Ali Shariati. And surprised it was written by a man, but more than that, something in the title freaked me out. And I just put it away on a bookshelf. And my mom said, don't you want to read it? I said, yeah, I'll read it. And for a good few years, I avoided reading that book because I felt, just looking at the title, that if I read that book, it is going to change my life. And indeed, it took me a long time to get the courage to read it. And it was, in fact, after I had become more aware of, or become not even aware of, but connecting with faith, connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, looking at my life, looking where I was going. I was lucky enough to be able to climb an educational ladder throughout my teens that would, in those days, this is the 1970s, 1980s. My teens were the 1980s, so I'm not even older than I just managed to say. In those days, at least in this country, which sadly isn't the case now, education could get you social mobility and take you a bit forward in life. And I had to sort of decide, okay, there is an easy route for me to be a successful writer, maybe even a playwright, screenwriter, something like this. I've got everything stacked up. The future is ahead of me. I can step into this world. But I also knew that that world is, as Dr. Sadiya has so eloquently put, a secularized world, which is not sort of just without faith, but what comes with that is a lack of, to put it in old-fashioned terms, a lack of morality. And that is used to be a very controversial thing to say, and I think it still is. And I think, as you see with all these arguments that we're always being faced with about Charlie Hebdo, this, that, the other, Muslims are continually being told, it's one of the Islamophobic narratives that you're deeply moralistic and you're very controlling about this value, that value, women's, blah, 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 blah. Well, actually, it's only a week now that a report was issued in this country, and I'm sure all of you are aware of it, that 97% of the women interviewed by, I think it was Gallup, said that they had experienced sexual harassment. And this is a slightly depressing thing for me to raise, but it's part of my journey, and it's part of what I want to talk to you about in terms of not me, but all of us being leaders, as both my sisters have already said, and as Lamya said about the mission of Strive, which is to challenge both the stereotypes about Islam and Muslims, but also to challenge injustice and to work for liberation, and through that, some kind of equality, equity, however you want to describe it. We have to place ourselves in the wider picture. Now, me as a sort of growing teen, the penny started dropping that, I could go down a certain road. Not only will it be full of that, because life was already full of that kind of sexualized environment that is full of what we call now microaggressions with regard to racism, but which is also the same in terms of what is called low-level sexual harassment, as well as occasionally very extreme forms of it. Now, you can negotiate that, or in those days, you can negotiate that and still become, I don't know, a leader in your field. But at what price? It's at the price of your own dignity, but it's also at the price of all women's dignity. And in a way, to the price and the detriment of society itself, because you end up reproducing and becoming part of the problem. That is not to say that women who experience any kind of sexual violence or assault or any of these things, or the low-level sexual harassment, are somehow responsible for it. But what it does mean is that when you put yourself in a certain position as a leader, whether you're a man or a woman, you have to be honest about the place that you are in. And I think it's one of the things that has struck me over the years, many years later, I think it was 26, 1997, when we founded Islamic Human Rights Commission. It's been a challenge for me from that day onwards, and indeed in the work I did in the years before that, both on a personal level, to stop internalizing the prevailing norms of society. And that includes actually Islamophobic and racist narratives and sexist narratives about myself and others, but also to really try and push back at the way this society that we live in really, really controls all women, and then essentializes them in ways to do with not just gender, but ethnicity, religion. These are all different forms of control. And actually then making the connection and realizing that it's actually not even only about women. It's about almost everyone, and about the powerlessness of so many people, not just here in my locale, but worldwide. So the sister read a very nice introduction to IHRC, in which, it probably sounded a bit weird. How is it they're talking about advocacy and casework for people who have, found some discrimination at work or school, and then war crimes? Well, actually, because all injustice is on a, if you like, a sliding scale, it's not different. And this is an understanding that actually does come from our faith. Islamic Human Rights Commission was set up not just by myself, that we were a group of about 6 people coming from different experiences and backgrounds and organizations. And we came together with certain key ideas and aims and goals. Whether we've ever been successful, that's another thing. But one of those was to really push back at the way Muslims were being, kind of almost imprisoned within certain narratives. So we called ourselves Islamic Human Rights Commission. I was actually against the name. I wanted something a little bit more kind of dynamic, exciting, liberation, blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line was this, that we were going to be working in the human rights field. And in the human rights field, even in those days, maybe even especially so, you know, the kind of prejudices we face are not new. They are not even decades old, they're centuries old. There was a perception amongst the most well-meaning people that actually, as much as Muslims, and about 80% of victims of human rights abuses around the world were then and still are Muslim, Islam is actually also a problem. If anything, Islam is against human rights, or Islam is against justice, Islam is against dignity, Islam is against blah, 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 you know, all the things we're very used to. And for us to turn around and say, well, actually, no, it's Islam that is motivating us, was a key, very, very important thing for us to say, to put our foot down about, and to kind of wear our hearts on our sleeve. That was number one. The second thing that we really wanted to do, and that's been the bigger challenge, and it's something, because I was asked to talk a little bit about vision, my vision for the future of Muslims in Britain, was to actually then be able to say, but actually, you know what? It's not just that we are Muslim human rights activists who have been inspired by Islam. We want to talk about what rights means. What does it mean? Not just for Muslims, but for everybody, using the things that we believe in. That doesn't mean we're here to sit and make everybody Muslim, but it does mean we want to have a whole new conversation about how we talk about justice. What is justice? What is dignity? What is equity? What are all these concepts? And this is what I want to kind of focus on, this idea that somehow, and I accuse myself first, we do internalize a lot of ideas. It's inevitable when you are in a minoritized position. We're not necessarily minorities as Muslims. We are, yes, within the kind of fictional borders of a country called the United Kingdom, a small percentage, 5%. Census is tomorrow. Maybe we'll find out in a year's time if we are more than 5%. Ultimately, worldwide, there are a lot of Muslims, okay? However many billion. That's not a minority in the conventional sense of any scenario. And our journey really is to reconnect who we believe we are within the wider context. Where is it we belong? We say when someone passes away, we say when there's a crisis, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We belong to Allah, and to Him we return. What does that mean for the moments that we are alive here and now? Now, I'm not an alima. I don't know how to answer this in a sophisticated way or even in a proper way, so please speak to people who are better versed in this than myself. But the idea of belonging, insofar as it means anything to us in this world, cannot be, to my mind, and it's been our sort of mission as an organization, forever being cramped and squeezed and pushed. We often talk about Muslims as being marginalized or excluded, or indeed we may be talking about social exclusion of other groups. Indeed, for the longest time of my life, till at least the mid-90s, we were talking about women being excluded from society. Then somehow suddenly, and I don't really know why, there was an idea that maybe that was all okay and we are now in a kind of very equal society here, and that it's actually inequality about gender in other parts of the world, particularly the non-European or the non-white world. We belong not so much as British, but we belong to an ummah, which is a Muslim ummah, but then we also belong to the world. And I think this is a very, very important concept, because all of the things that are causing problems, and we know this from an Islamic point of view, are to do with creating borders, physical borders, psychological borders, borders created, or barriers is probably a better word, by hatred, by misinformation, misunderstanding, ignorance, things my sisters have talked about already. We have to be very careful that we don't internalize those. One of the sisters, I believe it's Lamya at the beginning, but my other sisters have also mentioned this, that we have a lot of barriers to us due to cultural reasons, due to ignorance. This is very true, but where do those things come from, and why have they become so powerful in our lives when 1400 years ago, with the advent of Islam, we had a truly liberationary movement. And if I didn't believe that, and if all of us frankly didn't believe that, I think a lot of us wouldn't be here, right? We have a very deep connection with Ummatul Mu'mineen. We have so many examples, whether it's Nusayba, whether it's Suhaila, whether it's Hazrat Fatima al-Zahra or Sayyida Zainab. So many people from the time of the Prophet themselves, never mind in the coming generations. And we could talk about many examples, for example, the founder of the first university, Fatima al-Fahri, and so on and so forth. Excuse me, I lost my train of thought there. How do we then explain why things are such a mess, not just for us as Muslim women, but around the world, and also coming back to that 97% figure, in the very heart of what in the modern world is supposed to be a place of equality and liberation. And I think one word that is often missing, and it's deliberately missing because it's like a great kind of conjuring trick, and that is colonialism. And whilst what I'm talking about, colonialism is only 500 years old, and I'm not saying before 500 years the world was a perfect place or Muslims had it great, etc., or that Muslims themselves don't have a huge responsibility to play for the situation, the mess that we're in. This rupture in the timeline of the world that kind of is marked by the fall of Al-Andalus, the conquest of the Americas, and the violence that has ensued since then, the political ideas that have ensued since then, are really marking our lives till today. And it's something that we need to make ourselves very, very aware of, because it not just impacts how the narratives of hatred that a lot of us experience, whether it's to do with ethnicity or in particular Islamophobia, because Islamophobia is anti-Muslim hatred it's a foundational concept when you look back at what happened in the fall of Al-Andalus to what we understand to be Europe today. There are many better people you can go away and read, and I can give some suggestions in chat later who discuss this, or videos that you'll find by my colleagues and friends on the IHRC YouTube channel, etc. But unless we kind of understand that, we're not only not understanding where the problems come from or how to deal with them, we're also then actually internalizing those ideas in our forms of resistance. Now, what I mean by that is, let's talk about how we discuss our problems as Muslims, as Muslim women, or as women. And we're often talking, I mean, I've read so many fantastic things, including in Fatima's Fatima, about how, you know, in Islam, women are allowed to work, they can, you know, they earn their money, they keep their money, this, etc., etc., etc. This is all true. We know this. Almost all schools of thought put the, you know, the responsibility for the house, for cooking, for all these things actually on men. And then if women are doing that work, they are to be paid for it, etc., etc. I've read this so many times. Talk about how Muslim women, or the mother when she's breastfeeding, could demand payment for it. But what we're not also understanding when we talk like that is that we have also internalized some ideas about what work means, okay? And we are sort of trying to explain that certain things we do is work, but we haven't really kind of used it in a way to challenge actually the prevailing narrative. And that prevailing narrative is home, women, that's something, it's not work, right? And what men do, or what women do when they go out of the home, that's work. This is something else. The home stuff is something else. We need to be able to push that bigger narrative to actually go back and say, well, actually, I don't know what you are talking about. Why is it that you see the world in that way? You don't have to be aggressive about it. Something Sister Raghad said right at the beginning, and it really struck a chord with me. She said, we shouldn't be afraid to speak up with our ideas, okay? Because you don't want to be, I think I wrote it down at the time, I don't want to be, or I don't want to sound like a person who's asking for too much. Actually, I think all of us, we really should ask for too much. We really should ask for the world to change. Yes, of course, we're all not responsible as individuals to change the whole world by ourselves. And as my sisters have put much more eloquently than myself, all the small things you do, those are so, so important. What I'm trying to talk about is how we look, to take an American phrase, to, have our eyes on the prize, ultimately where we belong and where we want to return to. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is justice. And this is part of our fitrah, to yearn for that. And that yearning can't just be about us, our narrow gender issues, or this, or that, the other, or our individual rights. It can be part of that holistic whole, where it's not a bad thing to ask for the world to be transformed. And it's not a problem for us to demand it and say, as Sister Sadiya said, excuse me, I was just trying to pick up her quote, for us to say we want to direct the story of our future, and our future means our whole world future. Now, women, I think, and Muslim women in particular, are perhaps maybe even uniquely placed to do that, because we are the ones who've experienced, at least particularly in these last few centuries, all sorts of oppressions. But as Steve Biko, the absolutely ahead of his time, or maybe connected in some ways prophetically to those ideas which are quite universal in our thinking, said, the greatest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Now, we as marginalized and oppressed people, we need to be able to kind of break our mental shackles and actually move forward in ways that are difficult. I'm talking now to the next generation of leaders, because, I'm actually on now my second year of leave from IHRC. I'm still involved in certain projects, but I'm no longer in the kind of day-to-day nitty-gritty because of, personal health reasons and family health reasons, etc. And it's given me a bit of time to think and go, well, hang on a minute, Arzu, you're getting on a bit here. And you need to be talking about what can you learn from what you've done, what mistakes you've made. And you're at a stage of life now where you might not have that much time left to fix those mistakes or try and learn as much as you could from them. So how do we shortcut that? Why should my sisters have to go through the same thing and kind of learn at my age certain things? Oh, I've gone well over time, excuse me. So I'll take this back to something. It took me about 4 or 5 years to read Fatima's Fatima, and I was a coward. I did it after I got to a certain stage in life. And it wasn't an easy read. Half of it is a polemic about all the kind of things we think about equality and rights and so on in a westernized world, and what kind of hypocrisy it is. That bit was good. But the second half was about the life of Hazrat Fatima Zahra and the kind of revolutionary impact she had and the women around her. And just to close, what Dr. Shariati says at the end of that book, and I really should have taken it down from my shelf, it is in fact just there, somewhere there. Because this highlights, again, how we talk about things. And he said, well, we can talk about such and such a woman in history. She was a great woman, but she was the wife of so-and-so. Or we can talk about so-and-so. They were the mother of so-and-so. However, when we talk about Hazrat Fatima Zahra, there's so much to talk about. All you can say is Fatima is Fatima. And when we start realizing the profundity of what our faith gives us, we can, inshallah, in our own little ways, push for that transformation of the world into something that is a liberation for everyone, whatever they profess and whatever they believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Arzu, for that wonderful talk. It was really interesting, and it was really inspiring to listen to your story, and reminding that we all have a responsibility to espouse social justice, and the inspiration to fight for human rights should come from our deen if we are true believers. So Thank you. Thank you once again for that wonderful talk.